Okay, this is the second video of our Zentangle. We're not even to the point to make our Zentangle yet because we want to add some color into our design. So you can see in this example, I have about 9 sections, and then each section I have divided into 3 to 5 parts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There might be like a 5th part right there. So now it's time to paint these. We're going to color them, and we're going to use paint crayons. So when you get these, if it's brand new, it's going to look something like this, and these are not good brushes, so we're going to put that aside. These are just like crayons, except for the fact that they will turn into paint. So I would encourage you to be real careful with these. They're pretty expensive, but if they do happen to break, which does happen frequently, it's okay. Just make sure you, at the end of class, you have the 2 parts together. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and begin. And when I do this, I'm going to have 2 to 3 colors in this. So I'm going to go ahead and use this color and this color. I might even use blue with it. So I'm going to go ahead and alternate these 3 colors. And I want you to work in a section. I don't want you to do here, 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 all the way around, because then I can let this dry as I work over here. And then if we get to step 3, I know this is dry and I can move on to it. Well, maybe this over here is drying. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start with this, we'll call it a magenta color. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the crayon to the line. I might even double it. Go over it 2 or 3 times just to give it a thick layer. I'm then moving on to the purple, doing the same thing. I'll show you the magic in just a minute, but we need to put some color on here first. And then the third one, which is our blue. Blue's pretty dark, but we'll see what it turns out like. So you notice I'm not coloring the whole section in. I'm just basically doing the lines. So if I go back to the next one, that means this line right here is going to have a little bit of this color. And this is actually running off the paper. We might see just a little bit right there. And then technically this purple would be in this little tiny section right up here that that's been off the camera here. So again, I'm doing the magenta, purple, blue, or pink, purple, blue, and then going from there. Okay, once I've applied the color, I'm then going to take my paintbrush and with just a little water, basically in the tip of it, I'm going to start with this first one, the smallest one. And notice that I stay right on the crayon here. I'm going to zoom in. See if we can focus that too. There. All right, so I've got water in my paintbrush, and I'm doing a wiggle thing here. I'm just taking the tip and I'm wiggling, 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 because I want to loosen this crayon up. Maybe a little more water to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And it's really smoothing out the crayon too. So once I get this liquid, then I'm going to take my paintbrush and just drag this paint towards the center. And by the time it gets to the other end of my shape, it's turning into white. Okay? So I'm going to change colors. And because there's very little on my paintbrush, I'm essentially just kind of rinsing it out, wiping it on the rim, and I'll move on to purple. So again, it's a wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And I literally am doing that, just tiny little circles to loosen up this paint. It is making the edge a little nicer too. All right, so wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And once I get that done, I'm just going to pull this paint, and you can tell that purple is darker, 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 darker. If you feel like it's really not getting much lighter, you can always take a paper towel, like right here, wipe off a little bit, dry it, and then drag it a little more. And if that doesn't work, because I have little lines there, I'm going to put a little more water here and just see if I can loosen up a little bit more of this paint and drag it. That doesn't really bother me that it's a little uneven. It ended up drying on me a little fast, but when I do my design, that's not really going to matter. Okay, so I've got a fading going on there. We're going to do the same thing on my blue. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And and drag. Now, because it was drying so fast, I'm going to put a little more water on. This is a big shape too, so I really want this to, I want to move fast on this one. So I'm going to wiggle, 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 and drag. You can also turn your paper so you get that tip going. Sometimes I turn my paper in all different directions just because it works better for me. I'm going to drag it, and it is getting lighter, okay? So once I hit that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to my last shape. Now, if you ever get any of these shapes where you're saying, oh gosh, Ms. Tree, it looks sloppy, I want to change that, I could actually let that dry and put a little more blue on and maybe make that a little more intense and cover up those lines. But for now, I'm going to leave it, because one of the worst things you can do is get your paper too saturated, even if it's watercolor. So I'm going to let that dry and decide maybe tomorrow to come back to it. So I got my pink, my last one. I'm kind of questioning, do I have enough pink on my paper? I don't know that I do. So I might come back to this too and add a little more pink, but this is my good starting point, and I can always change. This is my edge of my paper, so I'm going to even go right along that edge and then just drag it down. Again, I'm all working off the camera, I apologize. So, got this edge here. I'm going to drag it down. I'm thinking it's too light. I can decide tomorrow to come back and brighten that up a little bit. But this is essentially what we are doing. We're going with the lines dark, fading in. Line dark, fading in. So this is one of my students from last hour. She got quite a ways, and you can see she was really working on trying to get quite a bit done, and I really appreciate the fact that she was staying on one side. Okay, because tomorrow she can work on this side, and then as that dries, she can work over here with her Zentangle design. So stay in one section, and then move to the next section and move on. She's got some really cool lines going on, and she's got this nice pulling texture towards the center too. So this is the end of video 2, where we are applying the crayon and fading it into the center.